Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry for all. We're not. I know we're not live yet. We are. Okay. Hi. I am so sorry for all the technical difficulties. And now finally we are live here at Refoot and Nefesh, and we have Bari Mitzmann joining us and dealing with all of our technical difficulties. Thank you so much, Bari. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So Bari, just for those of you who didn't hear, Bari has a bachelor's in psychology, master's in special ed. She is currently the associate director of Las Vegas NCSY. Bari began sharing her experiences with anxiety and depression on Instagram. The tremendous amount of feedback motivated her to create Perinatal.com, which features several articles about fashion, inspiration, and living with mental illness. Bari, before we begin to hear your story, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your relationship with social media, and its impact on your life, and your unique way how you use it as a platform to inspire others?
So I actually very selfishly started my social media account. I used it for the purpose of asking my job to give me clothes. And I said I would start a modest fashion blog if you give me, X amounts of money, which was not a lot of money. But then I'll start doing something on social media. And as I gained a following, I realized oh, hey, these people actually listen to what I have to say. And as I started developing sort of a facade at one point, where it was just hey, life isn't so great right now. Why am I even pretending like it's so amazing? And I kind of just got real with everybody. And I think that's what helped a lot of people, and it helped me kind of move forward and change the dynamic that I had with my followers and with social media. That social media has a tendency to pressure us to depict our lives as something so incredibly perfect and pristine. But the reality is it's life. Life is not pristine and perfect and rah-rah amazing all the time. And I think I've been able to convince some of my friends to share their real aspects of their lives too. Yeah, pretty pictures are nice, but sometimes they're not real life, and we just have to embrace those times where it's not a pretty picture.
Right, for sure. Many people have heard of postpartum depression, but fewer have heard of perinatal depression. Are they the same thing? Are they different?
Well, when you look at the word perinatal and postpartum, you already see there's a difference.
Right.
Perinatal has to do with before the baby's born. Postpartum depression, that makes a lot of sense. You give birth and, hormones are changing and all of these things. And doctors ask, are you feeling okay? Are you experiencing any feelings of sadness or things like that? But doctors don't really seem to check that before you have the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I was really unfamiliar with until I actually experienced it. So as even though postpartum isn't as discussed as it should be, the idea of perinatal depression is something I had never heard of before. So yeah, it's more common than people think, but I think the reason why people don't talk about it is because they think they're the only one.
Right, 100%. When I came across your article about your experience on Theriana.com, and I was shocked. I really never heard of perinatal depression. It was so foreign. And when you go for your OB visits, they're not asking you, how are you feeling? Are you having any thoughts of anything?
Yeah.
They are pretty much just taking your blood and aren't you so excited? And, it's after the fact that everyone's on your case.
More of the baby's the size of a cantaloupe. Hooray.
Right.
No. Do you still want to have this baby?
Right. Yeah, that is not a common question that people ask, that right. OBs ask, or anyone in that office.
Right.
If you could please share with us what you felt or what provoked you to realize something was wrong during your pregnancy.
Okay, so I remember it started around the time that I took a trip to New York. And while I was there, I got sick, and I started not feeling too great, and I had a little bit of drama happen, and I unfortunately lost a good friend of mine. She passed away while I was in New York, and I went to the funeral, and she died at 25, and I was really down, and I got back, and I was in bed for a few days, and I just mentioned to my husband, I'm like, listen, I know it's a situational thing because of, what just happened, but if this happens, after I have the baby, like, make sure that I go to the doctor and I get treatment. I didn't even say if this happens later because I didn't assume that anything was wrong. But then I was in my third trimester, and I would have the baby, punching and kicking, and I would be like, every punch and kick and hiccup just started stressing me out. And I was just like, okay, enough. And at one point, I envisioned myself physically harming myself to remove the baby. And I was like, oh, hi. Like, that's not something so normal. Also being the fact that I wanted to have a baby since I was like 8 years old. I've always wanted to be a mother. Like, warning sign, hello. We called the doctor immediately because my doctor was on call. We explained the situation, and he said, come to my office on Monday. Here are some of your options. You can either, go to a psychologist, this and that. Maybe you want to see monitored to see if it goes away, or we can talk about different medications that aren't necessarily the safest. You don't hear that they're like, oh, yay, #1 approved for pregnancy, but it's something that the pros outweigh the cons. So for the next day or so, my husband and I sat down and discussed it. And I remember walking into the doctor's office, and I sat down and I said, please help me love my baby. And I'll never forget that, because now people know, and people see my child, and they know that I'm obsessed with her because she's so stinking cute. But at that point, like, I didn't want her anymore. Like, I didn't know who she was. I was just like, I can't. Like, I don't want her anymore. I changed my mind. Like, this is too debilitating. Like, I didn't go out anymore. I didn't speak to anyone. I was just in my little hole. And I got on medication. We decided that that was the best route. And we realized that if I'm so, like, if my hormones are going so crazy that I'm struggling right now, like, how much more so after I have the baby? Since we figured that it was a giant red flag for severe postpartum, we got on medication before, so that after I had the baby, like, thank God, I was great. Like, a little too great. Pushed myself a little too hard, It's like, relax, Max.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. So what, aside from the medication, what did treatment look like for you? Was there anything else that, like that I don't know if like you did end up seeing a psychologist that they recommended in addition to the medication that helped?
So they personally did not recommend any mental health professional.
Okay.
But I monitored myself to see how the medication was working. But in the meantime, I allowed myself and I accepted where I was currently at and being like, okay, the medication doesn't feel like kicked in. If I feel like I need to stay in bed, I'm going to stay in bed, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. Like, because this is something that I personally can't control at the moment. So I gave myself that time. And once I started feeling okay, I started getting back into my routine of self-care. If that meant not running errands and not doing dishes, and instead doing yoga or going for a swim, that's what I did. And if it came to calling somebody on the phone and discussing things with them, that was also really important. Also, I had a friend who did get on medication while she was pregnant, because she was suffering too. And she told me, and I was like, oh, really? Like, you got on medication? So that was also an important thing. Like, I also realized that, like, it's normal, and I wasn't the only one that needed to go on medication. She's like, I got on medication. I'm like, really? You can do that? So that was one of the options. That's what really opened me up to it. And besides for that, I really just took care of myself. After the baby, though, I started seeing a psychologist regularly, and still trying to do self-care, and really just loving my baby. She's really therapeutic. She's better than a puppy.
Yes, and self-care is a huge huge step to take for any new mother. That's what they recommend to help prevent any type of like postpartum depression. So you definitely, that was a very good move. I'm actually going to take a minute to ask viewers for questions. You could send anonymously to info@refuathanefesh.org or send comments on the live video. Okay, and Bari, do you have any advice for family and friends how they can be supportive to someone suffering from perinatal depression?
Yes. First thing, don't knock it. Don't brush it off. If you notice signs, you can speak to somebody who's suffering in a very respectful way. I had a friend who kind of realized that I was going through something, and she mentioned to me, she was like, when I was in Israel and I had my baby, the doctor told me, if you want to throw out your baby out the window, it's okay. Just go take a nap. Like, she was mentioning to me, the concept of like postpartum depression and how ridiculous she was treated about it. And she was trying to get me to think about the way I was thinking and the way I was feeling. And then when I opened up to her about it, she gave me some resources on how to cope with it. Also, somebody is struggling, help them. Like, not only, like, if you're not a mental health professional, like, just leave that to the mental health professionals. But if they need food, if you think they need socialization, like, get them a nice coffee and sit down with them and enjoy the time that you have with them to try to lift their spirits, cheer them up. It's very hard to be in that place, and it's a very lonely time. So if somebody's in that place, just be there for them, whatever they need.
That's very helpful advice. For anyone who's just joining us, we started about 30 minutes late due to some technical difficulties. So if you have any questions, you could submit them. And okay, another question. So you are an amazing role model. You're a director for NCSY, specifically like in the Jewish Orthodox community. How has this experience influenced your role as an educator and your relationship with God and Judaism?
So that's a tough question. Well, in my relationship with God, I mean, I did write an article about emunah and anxiety, of the fact that you can be somebody that suffers from a mental illness and still be somebody that believes in God and believes that God is in control. They're not mutually exclusive. Like, you don't have to be, if you're struggling, I view it as a challenge. And I had this challenge where I had to learn how to get help. And God sometimes sends me, let's say, anxiety. I also suffer from anxiety. And my situational anxiety is even worse. But my situational anxiety gives me red flags to know that I need to distance myself from another person. A lot of people get involved like deeply into relationships, and they're so sucked in that they can't get out after they realize how harmful it is. So I sometimes see my struggles as a blessing, because it enables me to like get the warning signs before it gets too far. In regard to other people, I'm able to express myself more clearly, and I say, I'm sorry if I'm not able to attend this. At that point, I when I was in bed, I said, I really can't promise anything. Mentally, I'm not in the best place. I might just need some alone time, or ask my husband, I really need something to cheer me up. Please, can I have your credit card to go buy something? It's just, it helps if you're self-aware and you know what the struggle is. It's so much easier to deal with, especially if you get help. Getting help is something that I'm so incredibly thankful for. And had I not gotten myself to the doctor and had I not admitted to myself that I was struggling and I was suffering with a mental illness, I don't know where I would currently be. You know, I was just thinking about this earlier, the idea of mental illness. It sounds so gross, the term. But then when you think about it, like if you have an illness, you have strep, you have, chicken pox, you have something that's an illness. It's something in your body that is not aligned properly. It's not at the homeostasis it's supposed to be. In my case, my serotonin was not in the level it was supposed to be. It wasn't on the right level. It is an illness. Does that make me a second-class citizen? Absolutely not. I think it's so important to know where you're at and be able to get the help you need in order to function as a normal human being. So I'm so thankful that we have terms, we have diagnoses, and we have resources in order to help us improve. I don't know. It's made me a stronger believer. I think it's helped me out a lot in figuring out who I am, what my strengths and what my weaknesses are. And I think people can respect that, and they do respect that.
That's great. Well, they do, and we already have questions from our viewers. They're coming in a lot.
Yay!
We're running late, so everyone's excited. So you touched upon this briefly, but had you ever suffered from anxiety or depression before this whole thing happened, or was this something completely new?
I am the poster child of childhood anxiety. So much so that my body was so greatly impacted because I didn't know what was going on with me. The anger and the stress turned inward, turned into terrible muscle spasms at the age of 10 years old. I was going to a chiropractor for my back. I had a hole in my stomach, which I only knew was a calcified ulcer once I got an x-ray. Like, I stressed myself out a lot. I did not have that. But instead, I turned it into this overachieving, need to do everything right, petrified of people not liking me, thinking I'm literally a piece of garbage. Like, that was my childhood and my teenagehood. Like, until I personally found a youth group of people that actually cared about me and cared what I had to say. Like, self-esteem horrible, anxiety horrible. Bad times. We blocked those out. We repressed some of those stressful moments that I've had. I'm not saying I had a terrible childhood, God forbid. I had a wonderful childhood. I just had many moments and many episodes that I wish I had help with. I actually also at one point got into a car accident. Chronic pain can turn somebody with an already chemical imbalance to further be in a depressed state. So yes, I got help at that point. I was on medication at that point. Whether it was anxiety or depression medications or pain management or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, all of these things. Been there, done that. So I had the tools to help me with that. But this was something new. This was something very, very different. I don't know, something about it. Also, you have a living being inside of you, kind of competing with your sanity. So that's something also that can really throw you off. But thankfully, amazing support system, very supportive family that does not view getting help as something negative. A very supportive husband who I actually told on my third date that I had anxiety and I was on anxiety and depression medication. Because I realized that's also something really important I want to touch upon. I realized that my struggles don't define me. Like, as much as I am somebody who struggles with anxiety and depression, I have a lot more to offer. So I was confident enough to share it. I was just told that I should share it after the third date, where I've already displayed my personality and kind of who I am. But it's not something to be embarrassed about. And when people ask me about it and ask but how did you tell him and this and that? Like, at least you know what your struggles are. Like, some people don't know and don't discover that they're suffering with a mental illness or even a physical illness until after they get married. At least you know what your battles are and you have the resources to try to help you to get better. I'm very thankful for my support system. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that having some type of struggle prior to this actually helped you in recognizing that something was off. You know, you kind of had that to your advantage in a certain sense.
Yeah.
That you're able to
Definitely
just now.
those flags was definitely helpful, and knowing that I had experience with depression before helped me know that I could potentially experience postpartum depression. I really hope that I answered the question. And if whoever submitted that question has a follow-up and I didn't answer it fully, please submit it again and we can follow up on it.
Okay. So what you mentioned that your husband was amazing. What advice do you have to husbands for their spouses when they're going through perinatal or postpartum depression? What are some helpful tips? Because they too are exhausted, and it's a very hard time for the entire family. So what advice do you have for them?
Save up money for a cleaning lady. That's my number one. Because if you're exhausted and your wife's exhausted and you're both just whatever, at least your brain can be surrounded by something that's not in disarray. Like, we saved up money, like, okay, cleaning lady time. Like, at least we're exhausted and there's nothing else. Like, at least we can like kind of focus because we're not surrounded by chaos. Also, I mean, that's a half joke, but like, seriously, like, if you can do that, like, really do that. Also, asking for help. Like, the husband does not have to do it all. If somebody in your neighborhood can come and watch the baby for a few hours while you both nap, amazing. If your wife is struggling, if you can't really understand, just be passionate. Just be compassionate, be caring. Just ask, is there something I can do for you? And if it is, then what? If you like, communication is very necessary for that, and like good communication. But as long as the husband also takes time for himself to recharge and then be able to do things for the wife, I think the wife can, appreciate that her husband's there. Like, when my husband, I'd be like, you know what, I really could go for like an iced coffee right now. My husband would run out and get me a Starbucks and come back. And it really just reminded me, like, he loves me, he cares about me, he's not going anywhere, even though I'm struggling with this right now. This doesn't mean this is going to go on forever. And it means that I'm still in a normal, healthy, amazing relationship. And that's fine that I'm struggling right now, but I'm safe. Nobody's going anywhere. And the husband also needs to know that it's temporary. The situation is temporary, and as soon as and understanding that there are resources to help, and as long as the woman is willing to find those people to get help, that's beautiful. And I think it's just a recipe for success.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have another question from one of our viewers. I know my sister is going through postpartum depression, and yet she seems to be in denial. I'm not able to help her too much as I'm dealing with my own stuff. What do you recommend, I guess, if somebody, you suspect of somebody going through postpartum depression?
So my first thing would be not to like jump to a diagnosis. Again, like, if she's in denial, then obviously jumping to a diagnosis won't be productive. But that's a real toughie.
Yeah.
You're a good sister for wanting to help. That's one. So props to you. Well, my first thing for that is, like, you're dealing with your own stuff. I'm focusing on the line, like, I'm dealing with my own stuff. Like, you take care of you first. It's important to take care of your own struggles first, and then to be able to extend yourself to others, because if you're focusing, if you're functioning on only 30%, you can't give 100%. You can't even give 30% to that other person. But if there's a loved one that's suffering with a mental health issue, it can be very, very painful and very self-destructive to yourself if they're not open to receiving advice about it. If you have someone like who's struggling with mental health, I mean, my personal way that I connect with somebody to try to bring in the idea that they might be suffering is I talk about myself. I'll reflect on myself and kind of mention things that I see in myself that they are struggling with as well. And that usually leads to oh, I'm dealing with that too. And it's like, oh, I received the diagnosis of X, Y, and Z, but it really helped me. Like this really helped me, that really helped me. Yours could be something different. I'm just saying that I'm dealing with something like this as well. If you want any resources or if you want any help, I'd really be happy to introduce you to my friend who's really going through something also very similar, or to my doctor. My doctor's really good with this. I have the same symptom, but showing that they're not the only one that's my personal strategy. Or if you're dealing with somebody who is struggling with mental health, you can go to refuathanefesh.org. How about that?
Thanks, Bari.
You can do that. I'm very impressed with this organization, by the way. I never heard of it until the organization reached out, and I've been dying for something like this to come about, just to have a place where people can learn about different mental health struggles that are just so normal and so prevalent. Like, it's beautiful that you guys do this. So thank you. I'm going to be checking it out a few times,
Thank you, Bari. Another question. Do you think, being that, in college classes, do you think that perinatal depression should be something that's discussed in college classes?
Such a touchy subject. I think so many things should be discussed in college classes. But I think any concept of depression or anxiety or warning signs of struggling in mental health should be discussed, because that's something that can happen at any point in marriage. Going into a depression because you're struggling with infertility, struggling with peripartum depression, struggling with postpartum depression. Like, it's a part of life that so many people struggle with. Like, I feel like it should also be discussed in yeshivas. It's something that the minute after I got out of seminary and I called one of my teachers and I said, oh, by the way, I'm actually on medication right now. Her response was, you and the rest of the world. Because so many people call her up and speak to her and mention that they're on medication, but nobody discusses it. And I kind of wish that our teachers spoke about it. I kind of wish that college teachers spoke about it. I kind of wish that Rebbeim spoke about it. I kind of wish everybody spoke about it. If you guys have any more questions, send them in. I love these questions from either, I don't know who's asking them, but from friends or potential friends or anyone.
Thank you. Okay. I wanted to just ask that I just want to remind viewers that they could submit questions and comments by posting under the live stream on the Refuat HaNefesh Facebook page, or by sending them anonymously to info@refuathanefesh.org. Bari touched a little bit about what we do here at Refuat HaNefesh. Refuat HaNefesh is an organization dedicated to eradicating the mental health stigma in the Jewish community through education and discussion, providing support to people affected by mental illness through our online community. In order for us to be successful in our mission, we need you to join forces with us. If you like this long life conversation and what we are attempting to do, please follow our social media pages. Read our informative articles at refuatanefesh.org and subscribe to our mailing list. Okay, Bari. So going forward, is there anything in your life that you feel that like you've changed as a result of like the whole, when you had perinatal depression? Is there anything that you've taken on or changed?
I've definitely become, it's funny because I'm a mother and like we always joke about mothers not having time for themselves, but I actually make a point to kind of be selfish when I need to, because I know that, number one, I'm taking care of a tiny human all the time, and taking time for myself to be able to give to my daughter is something I discovered is very important and something that helps me get out of a funk even now. Like whether it's going out with a friend or doing some stretches or anything like that, doing something to take care of myself. Also, I kind of keep an eye out for my friends to see how they're doing with it. I think I've become more of a sensitive person to women's mental health. Become a little bit more perceptive, and a little bit more sympathetic and compassionate to the people around me that I see are struggling. Postpartum can last a really long time, particularly if it goes untreated. But even if it's being treated slowly but surely, like it can last a while. And being there for other people and using my experiences to help them is really, had I not gone through this experience, I don't think I'd be able to, I don't think I would have been equipped to advise and help some of my friends.
Thank you. Another question we have is, do you fear having further children because you may develop perinatal depression again? God forbid.
I love that question. No, I want more kids. I'm just more prepared. I know what's potentially to come. Like I said, like knowing that I have a struggle enables me to strategize better. Like, okay, very possible that I will have perinatal depression again. And that's fine, because guess what? I may just go on medication again starting from the third trimester, or I may remain on medication throughout my pregnancy, and that's fine. And as long as I'm consulting with my doctor, my psychologist, and my psychiatrist, all is well in the world. Who knows? Maybe it might be better pregnancies if they actually know what to expect. I'm not afraid at all. Not at all.
Okay, thank you. Do you think the community understands what perinatal depression is and responds appropriately? How can the community, perhaps your community specifically, improve in this area?
Well, since people really don't know about perinatal depression, I don't think they get it. I mean, I have friends that it was literally night and day. Like during their pregnancy, they were like totally in a hole, like really struggling, really suffering. And the minute they had the baby, they were like back to themselves, which is freaky. It totally freaked me out. But it's like, I think it kind of showed my community that it needed to help out. And my community did help out. I don't know. I don't think anybody responds appropriately because they don't know about it. And I think women in particular in the community, as well as the community leaders, need to be equipped with resources to assist the people. My ideal situation would be if all rabbis had like mental health backgrounds and could like and their wives had mental health backgrounds and would like meet with the family and just schmooze with them and see if there's something wrong, like have resources and have people on hand and have doctors to recommend or things like that, different resources for them just in case, you know? But that's, again, is in my utopian world that I'm yet to invent, but we'll see. Maybe soon. Maybe with your foot on Eva's help.
Right. I was going to say that is our goal here at Refuat HaNefesh. We really want to bring that awareness into the synagogues and like make sure like that people have rabbis that can give like mental health referrals. And we do have some upcoming live conversations that will be by rabbis who have dealt with mental illness. Okay, so we don't have that much time left. And if anyone else wants to get their questions in or comments, you can share them on the live stream on Refuat HaNefesh Facebook page or send them anonymously to info@refuathanefesh.org. Okay. So do you think that, I'm sorry, excuse me. The next live chat will be with Moshe Winograd on May 27th. For those of you who are enjoying this live conversation, just to let you know what is coming. He will be discussing coping with the loss of an unborn child.
Wow, I want to see that.
Yeah, very intense one. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned that self-care for you is like was very helpful. Did you find and support from your community? How about getting sleep? Did that help a lot or make it worse? Like, how did it kind of play in with your treatment?
Sleep. See, that one's tricky because, I mean, I know that for myself, if I'm overwhelmed and stressed out and and extremely anxious, if I'm able to get myself to sleep and take a nap, then I'm able to like really relax my body and be able to handle the next thing. When it comes to depression, it was not helpful. I don't know if it hurt. It didn't help. Like, you can sleep for as long as you want in that type of situation. I got a lot of sleep and a lot of Netflix. But a lot of sleep. Personally, sleep did not help at that point. Also, I couldn't really sleep so much. I had a human kicking me all night. Very frustrating. But yeah. I don't know. But now she's cute, and now I'm happy with her, and I'll keep her, and I'll just keep taking videos and pictures of her and showing the world how cute she is.
And speaking about how you do that, you have a tremendous presence on Instagram, and how's the impact that that has come about after? I'm sorry, excuse me. Once you getting tired. Okay, what is your impact like now on Instagram? How has it shifted? You spoke initially about how you felt like that your presence on social media you were excited because you were involved with a lot of fashion stuff and getting items and what. But now, like, your whole platform has kind of changed. There's a lot of inspiration that you bring now to light. So what has your feedback been like from that?
A lot of people, I get a lot of messages. A lot of them thanking me for being open about my struggles because it makes others feel human and feel like they're not this, unicorn that, nobody else is struggling, and all of these people on social media look so beautiful and look so perfect and look like lives so amazing. I've become like really cool with being real about myself, and I'll literally get on and be like, I'm exhausted. Like, I'm not going to do anything today. Like, I'm going to change my pajamas and I'm going to go back to sleep. Like, that's what's happening. And I'm aware of it, and it's fine. And I'm gonna have some popcorn, and I'm gonna watch a movie, and that's cool. And people are just like, thank you for that. Like, I really appreciate that you're being normal and real with us. I actually got a really nice message from somebody whose spouse was suffering from anxiety and depression, and didn't know how, like, didn't understand how they could think that way or how they could feel that way. But seeing and hearing some of my stuff was able to, like, enabled her to understand a little bit more. So I feel like hopefully I'm providing a platform where people kind of understand. I haven't gotten any hate mail about that yet. Usually it's about me just talking and people find something weird to troll on. But, like, that's been something really good, and a lot of people appreciate where I've come from. I've actually developed a relationship with a girl through my honesty, and, like, her and I have, like, a really close relationship now where she asks me questions about dating and marriage and things like that, and dealing with mental health at the same time. I'm really blessed to have this platform and be able to share my experiences and kind of let other people know that they're not alone. So I'm having a lot more fun now, not pretending like everything's all hunky-dory all the time. I love it. It's so much fun.
It is. Okay. Reminding everyone, if you have any questions to submit to info@refuathanefesh.org. We have another anonymous question. Do you feel that parents could do anything differently to prevent this type of depression in their children?
If you're talking about peripartum depression, my very clear answer is absolutely not, being that with pregnancy, the amount of enzymes and not even enzymes, another word, all of the, hormones and all the different components of your body are going cuckoo. Like, they're going nuts. And that can make somebody literally psychotic. A friend of mine told me at her son's circumcision, hi baby, at her son's circumcision, she literally thought he was the Messiah and was yelling for them not to give him a circumcision. Like, she doesn't have any mental health issues in her family, but she developed a psychosis. And that's the luck of the draw, ladies and gentlemen. Like, that's something that you cannot control. When it comes to anxiety and depression in children, that's a totally different story. That's a concept of nature versus nurture that I can't go into, and I'm not a mental health professional. I always make that disclaimer. I am not a mental health professional. Maybe one day, but I do not have the resources to analyze a child and determine if someone's just, like, if there's situational factors that exacerbate a situation, or it's completely hormonal and different serotonin issues. Like, I can't tell you that. Like I'm not qualified to do that. It's always a big disclaimer. So I can't really answer that question.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to answer. We don't know what causes that. Definitely a lot of love and support from what you've been telling us tonight can help while your child is going through that situation.
Well, I mean, of course I read books and things to, like, try to not, how to learn how to nurture my child so that she doesn't develop some of my tendencies through the concept of nurture. I've been reading a book called The Blessing of a Skinned Knee, which, teaches parents how to develop intrinsically happy children. Children that are able to be children, and are using age-appropriate behaviors, and also enabling them to develop into truly happy, healthy individuals. That's a personal favorite. If there was something that I would recommend about parenting, it would definitely be The Blessing of a Skinned Knee. That's a favorite. I gotta read it again. It's so good.
That is good. I have that book. I heard her speak too. She's very funny.
Ooh, I want to meet her, shake her hand one day.
Yeah, she is. She's very funny. Are there any other books that you recommend for our viewers?
I read so many books. In regard to what?
Parenting, mental health, self-esteem.
Self-esteem. My husband knows these things. Because I read. Oh, so one thing that kind of helped me, I guess, for peripartum, there's a really funny book, but I can't fully say the title out loud, that kind of prepares you for life. It's called No One Tells You. Someone recommended it to me. Essentially, it demystifies in a very funny way the concept of pregnancy and childbirth and child rearing and teething and all of these things. She does it in an extremely funny, blunt, hilarious way. Like, there's literally a chapter of what to steal from the hospital. I took notes and I came home with 6 packs of diapers. But, like, the real stuff in there is like having you emotionally prepared for things to go wrong during childbirth, potentially, for nursing not to go the right way, for different problems, teething, different child problems that can arise. And it enables you to kind of laugh at it, but also be prepared for what's going to happen. There's a chapter that's like, you will never sleep again. That's a chapter. It also gives, like, different mothers give their own advice to new parents. Do you want to come say hi to everybody? Do you want to see the child that I now love?
We would love that.
Do you remember when I told the doctor that I wasn't sure if I was going to love you? I definitely love you. I mean, look at this face. She's all over my Instagram and my social media. To get her own thing. Say hi, everybody. Say hi. I'm very happy that my mommy prepared herself. So now that I'm teething, I'm really fine with it. It's also very scary for people who struggle with mental health to try to figure out, like, if they're going to mess up their kids. Like, don't think about that. Just work on yourself. You can get crippled by the fact that you're like, oh my God, am I going to, like, turn my kid into me? Am I going to turn my kid into a nightmare? All of these things. Like, day by day, love your child, take care of yourself, and they'll be fine, right? So, yeah.
100%. Yeah, the more you work on yourself and make sure that you are doing well, the more that they will follow in your footsteps.
Yeah.
What a cutie. Love those cheeks.
So her signature, I'm very happy with her.
Thank God. Such a cutie. Hey, just for anyone else, any other questions that you have, you could submit them to info@refuathanefesh.org or under the live stream on the Refuat HaNefesh Facebook page. Okay. So, I'm sorry, Bari, what's your baby's name again?
My baby's name is Yiddish.
Yiddish.
Kind of like Yiddish, but without the H. She's named after my husband's grandmother, who saved her 9 children, got them all out of Soviet Ukraine into Israel, saved her husband from going to Siberia. Like, she was pretty cool, and Yiddish means gratitude, and I am extremely grateful and thankful for her. And even in my dark days now, she gives me light. She is literally the light of my life. Like I said, I joke. I always tell everyone she's better than a therapy dog. Like, she is. I'm very blessed. She is delicious. She smiles. She's fat. I mean, look at her face. It's delicious. I just like, if I'm in a terrible mood, like, I don't know, I can't not smile at her. Like, I'm so thankful that I got the help that I needed. Like, I don't know where I would be and what my relationship with my child would be had I not, you know, had I not taken care of myself. And sometimes, you know, self-care can kind of involve like just having me time with the baby, you know, like I do a lot of outreach and I work with a lot of teens. And one of the things that I try to make sure every weekend that I have a lot of teens is that I have at least 30 minutes alone with my baby. I'll go into another room, or I'll take her back to the house and I'll bring her to my room and I'll just play with her. And I make sure, like, to make a mental decision that I need to at least make a mental note of a time during the day where I had a special moment with my daughter. And that helps me move forward and it recharges me. And I think it's part of taking care of myself, of knowing and reminding myself that I'm a good mom. You know, I might not always be able to clean the house. I might not always be able to clean the dishes. I might not always be in the best frame of mind, but I'm still a good mother and I love my child. And that definitely helps me remember that every single day, just spending time with her.
Thank you. Yeah. And okay. And I think that we are not done yet. So if anyone has any other questions, you could send them to info@refuathanefesh.org, or you can post them under the live stream on the Refuat HaNefesh Facebook page. Anonymous question. Okay, good thing. Will you tell your child about what you went through when she grows up? Will you tell Yiddish what you went through? Why or why not?
Whoa. Oh my God. I think that depends. I think it depends on the child she like and the person that she becomes. I think it depends if she's somebody that I can see is struggling with mental health or not. It's something that I would need, like, if I'm struggling very clear with mental health or not. I'm not sure, you know. I think it depends on where she would be. It's not something to be, you know, I'm not embarrassed of it. I tell people it all the time. But if she's a child, if she's an adult that's just going to be like, oh, you know, like, maybe my mom didn't want me, or maybe, you know, then that's something I wouldn't, like, mention. But if she is somebody that might be struggling, and it'll be like, oh, but Ma, how does that even make sense? You know, you love me so much, this and that. That could be a good way to explain the concept of like mental health difficulties and mental illness. But I think that I'll be teaching my daughter and my children about that early on, because I think they'll see it in school. I think they'll see it in their friends. I think they'll see it in other families, and they'll ask questions. And I don't think I'm going to, you know, pretend like mental illness isn't prevalent in every community. I think it's important for children to know, especially if their friend is struggling and the parents aren't aware, for them to come and say, you know what, Mommy, I think my friend, she's been really, really sad and she's saying these really scary things and I'm not really sure what to do. To have a child be aware of that is an extreme sensitivity that, you know, hopefully every child can learn to develop, and, you know, maybe not have to develop it and have everybody be very confident, self-aware, mentally healthy human beings. The reality is, for the foreseeable future, it will still be a struggle. And God willing, you know, this generation, you know, starting with the Refuat HaNefesh, starting with all of our resources, we can be able to spread the message and spread awareness and have everybody be ready and willing to help out.
Amen. Thank you so much, Bari. You are a real inspiration, and your words of wisdom tonight are very helpful and beneficial for our community at large. Thank you so much. And if anyone missed part of this live stream or wants to see the beginning part of this stream, which wasn't really happening, you could go to refuathanefesh.org. Our next live chat will be with Moshe Winograd on coping of the loss of an unborn child on May 27th. Bari, thank you again. Thank you for bearing with us, and everyone, thank you for bearing with us with our technical difficulties.
My pleasure.
And thank you for all that you do, Bari. We really appreciate you giving us the time tonight.
Please, it's my pleasure. Thank you guys. You're really doing an amazing service for our community. It's the least I can do.
Thank you. Okay.